All right. So, what are we going to talk about today? So, we're going to go over three main pieces of creativity and problem solving. First, we're just going to go over what is creativity and problem solving. It's a very vague topic that has a lot of different meanings depending on what industry you work in, right? Engineering, creativity, and problem solving might look a lot different than human resources creativity and problem solving. So, we're going to talk about some different, just brief introductions to what we mean by that. Then we're going to talk about effective techniques for utilizing creativity and problem solving in the workplace, what some of those look like, and we might even do one or two of them during this time. And then finally, we're going to talk about increasing creativity. I don't know about you, but I'm a very black and white thinker. It is not my biggest strong suit to use creativity. And so coming up with different ways to really grow that capacity in yourself is something that we want to focus on so that when you get into those situations, you have some really good resources to fall back on. So first, we're going to start with understanding creativity and problem solving. But first, I want to pause and in the chat, go ahead and tell me what you think the definition of creativity and problem solving is. What does this phrase mean to you? All right, new ways of knowing and doing. Yep, excellent. Unique solutions that incorporate more than black and white thinking. Absolutely. Way to use my words against me there. And finding an easier way to solve an issue. Find any way to solve the problem you face. Yes, all of those are really, really great definitions. And there are some key themes that keep popping up in there, right? And those key themes really kind of come back to your ability to exercise sound reasoning, to analyze issues, synthesize the information that you get, make a decision, and solve the problem that you're facing. Really, that is what it really boils down to, is your ability to use your critical thinking skills. So using that critical thinking, but then also strategically implementing that in the process that you're already using and innovating new solutions to every problem. I don't know about you all, but I'm old enough to remember when I came into Virginia Tech, our motto was invent the future, or slogan or whatever it was, but it was invent the future. And that really highlights that creativity and problem solving. We're really trying to invent new ways of doing things and not really settling for the, well, that's just the way we've always done it answer. And really, that's going to be a theme that we talk about today, is moving beyond the, well, that's the way that we've always done it answer, and into, okay, but how can we do it better or more efficiently? Or if it's a new problem that you're facing for the first time, how can you fix it? So there's going to be a lot of key kind of themes that we talk about today. But as you all mentioned in there, really using that critical thinking and strategic thinking to solve those issues is going to be the underlying kind of emphasis that we go with. So why does this matter? Why is creativity and problem solving important in the workplace? And there's really a couple main reasons, and these have been studied a lot. And a creative work environment tends to lead itself to better teamwork and team bonding abilities, increased workplace engagement and interaction, increased staff morale, and increased workplace problem solving and productivity. So these are all really, really great answers. It really talks about cohesion of the team and their abilities to really utilize their skill sets, because that's really what we want to do in the workplace, right? Is we want to feel valued for utilizing the skill sets we bring. And allowing your employees to be creative and solve their own problems in the workplace is something that lets them do just that. But enough about that. We all know that the end goal of coming to Virginia Tech is to leave with a really good job, or at least the next step in your journey. So why is creativity and problem solving important in the employer's eyes? Is because out of the 7 professional competencies that we have, it's number 4 ranked in importance based on a survey that our office conducted just a few years ago. So out of a 5-point scale, employers rank creativity and problem solving as a 4.35 importance. So that means they value that ability for students to come in and really be able to hit the ground running and pretty much work with any situation that they're given. And with the last 3 years, being in the pandemic, well, I guess 3.5 years now, that has been a really reoccurring theme in the workplace is how do we solve the issue that we don't know is coming. But as you can see, the kind of rate of possession of this skill by the new hire is only a 4.17. So we do have a gap from desired ability to actual ability. And so we need to focus on ways that we can start shrinking this gap and making sure that we have the right tools in our arsenal to get where we need to be. And so we're going to go into some problem solving methods and techniques. So today we're really going to talk about, 4 big overarching themes with a couple different pieces laid in between them. But the 4 main problem solving techniques that we're going to talk about are brainstorming, mind mapping, the SCAMPER method, and design-based thinking. And so when we're thinking about these different things, the first thing that we often think about with creativity is brainstorming, because we want to come up with good ideas or new ideas. And so we often have this picture of, a bunch of people sitting around a table and throwing out ideas, and there's spilt coffee cups everywhere because they've been there for hours. And, it's this big kind of grander thing that we picture. But in reality, there are a lot of different ways to do brainstorming. There is no right or wrong way, but there are some different structured methods on how to do it. So the first one I want to talk about today is called rapid ideation. And this is truly the embodiment of quantity over quality. So we're going to come up with as many ideas as possible without discussing. Because when you start discussing them, you start picking them apart and you start seeing which, parts of this idea will work and which parts won't, and which parts of this idea will work and which parts won't. And you start getting distracted from the main point of trying to figure out a new way to do it. So when it comes to that point of trying to figure out a new way to do something, we really want to get as many ideas on the table, and we'll go back over them later for sure, but we want to get them down before we lose that momentum. And that momentum is something that is really focused on in this idea or rapid ideation. But there is a different way to do this too. So this one's called brainwriting. So ideally you would do this with a small group of people, probably, 6 people or so. And you would start by writing down on a piece of paper 2 to 3 ideas. From there, you would partner up with someone else, switch pieces of paper. And from their 2 to 3 ideas, you would write down 2 to 3 ideas based on theirs. And they would do the same on your sheet of paper. And from there, you just keep switching paper until it's gone around the room fully. And then you have a brand new set of 6 lists of ideas that you can go through. They're all going to be different because they're all based on different things. And you can start kind of working through those ideas and seeing which ones will work, if parts of ones will work, or if none of them work, kind of where to go next. You can also do word clouds, which was supposed to be our first activity. But essentially word clouds, I'm assuming we're all familiar with, are where you start throwing words into a word cloud generator. And the more frequently a word pops up, the larger and more prominent it will become in the word map. So if you have a group of people, especially like we were supposed to have done today until technology betrayed me, where you would just kind of start throwing different ideas together. And if common themes started to pop up, they would visibly get bigger and a lot easier to see in retrospect to the rest of the work. So that's another great way to do that. And there are a bunch of free ways to do it that actually work consistently. Slido is one of them, which is the app that I'm using today. Apparently you just have to test run it 6 times instead of 5. And then mind mapping. So mind mapping is a different way of kind of going about this, and it's a much more visual way. So mind mapping really starts with one central idea or question. From there, we want to branch out as many ideas as possible. So in this example here, we're starting with sports, a very vague, a very broad topic. And we're going to break it down into subsections. So we have individual sports, we have team sports, contact sports, water sports. And we're going to go through here and start branching off from there. So individual sports, we have track and cycling, golf, tennis, even though some of those can have duplicates or doubles, that's going to be those ones. And then we go into the water sports, water aerobics, swimming. So as you can see, as we start branching out further and further, we have more specifics, we have different ideas, and they're all going to be based kind of in different directions depending on where on the map they're at. And this branching kind of helps create the map. And we'll talk about some different resources on how to make these virtually and in person a little bit later on. But this is a great way, especially to get a team involved. We have specifically used these in some different strategic planning events, and it really helps get everyone involved in the process. The next thing we're going to talk about is the SCAMPER method. But before we go through that, does anyone have any questions? I know this has been 17 minutes of me battling technology and kind of going back and forth, but I want to make sure I stop and answer any questions someone might have. And throughout this presentation, if you do have questions, please feel free to include those in the chat, and I'll kind of address them as I go. So I'm going to start talking about the SCAMPER method, but if you do have anything, please feel free to throw it in the chat. But SCAMPER is obviously an acronym. So that stands for substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, and reverse. Now, that's great, but what does any of that mean in relation to what you're doing? So with the SCAMPER method, the first part of it is going to kind of fall under this category. So substitute, or thinking about swapping out elements or materials. So if you're already doing something a certain way, but it's just not working 100%, can you substitute out a piece of that for a different process or a different material or a different whatever to see if that kind of makes a difference? Or if that's not what it is, if the thing that you've got's working, it's just not 100% completing what you needed to do, is there something that you can add in or combine to get it to where it needs to be at 100%? What happens if you blend those ideas or those processes or those materials together to give you what you want? Then we have adapt. So maybe what you have is working, but it might, kind of work in a different way or in a different area a lot better than in the area it's currently working. So can you adapt it or switch it out and make sure that that is working as best it can? And we move on to modify or magnify. So can we enhance something? If it's already working really well, can we make it just a little bit better to reduce certain aspects or enhance other aspects to make it just that much better in the process? So on the second half, we have put to another use. So is there an alternative application that this might work well in, or is there another piece that could be substituted in this process that's going to help make your product just that much better or the results that much greater? We have eliminate. So is there a step in the process that you don't need to do, or is there a piece of material that you don't need to include? Could this save you money? Could this save you time? If it can, is it going to be best to remove it? Or is it going to be minimized without losing functionality? The real goal here is to make sure that we're not losing anything, but if it's something that's unnecessary, can we take that out? Again, that's kind of where that method of just because we've always done it this way doesn't mean we have to keep doing it this way kind of comes back in. And then reverse or rearrange. So is the process working really well already, but could you reverse or rearrange the steps in the process to make it that much more efficient? Or if you're, manufacturing new tires for a car, maybe if you started from a different step in the process and then continued into the making of the tire, maybe that might be a little bit more efficient and you get them done quicker. So what kind of processes can you rearrange or reorder to give you some more efficiency in your overall product? So next, we're going to talk about design-based thinking. And so design-based thinking is something that is really kind of infiltrating a lot of different areas of business. It's something that even in our office, not in the corporate world, we are talking about a lot. But it's kind of the idea that it's a solutions-based process that ventures between the concrete and the abstract. Or in this case, that abstract is going to mean those really big overarching ideas that, people are just dying to get a hold of. Those are the dreams, and the concrete reality of what we have to work with. And creativity and innovation are going to be key to the design thinking process. In that design thinking process, we've got four major stages. We've got the clarify stage, and this is where your observations and empathy are going to be critical to kind of establish a baseline of where you're at. Then we have the ideate stage, and this is exactly what it sounds like, trying to generate as many ideas as possible. We're really going to embrace the abstract, the creativity, really the brainstorming phase of this. From there, we have the develop stage, and this is going to be your trial and error stage, your experimentation, what works, what doesn't work. This is your kind of coming back to earth stage. That ideate stage is taking you all the way up here, and you're going to kind of bring yourself back down with this development stage. From there, the goal of the development stage is to get to this implementation stage, or the ability to use what you developed in this process. So with that, just a kind of a brief overview, again, a little bit more in depth. The clarify stage, this is really going to involve collecting both concrete data. So where are we? Benchmarking where we're at so that we can get further along. And then those abstract insights, those kind of reaching for the stars, dreams and aspirations. Where do we want to be? And this is not only just to gain the idea of where we're at, but also the impact on the individuals and the overall kind of company based on where we want to go. Then we have the ideation stage. Again, this is the very abstract creativity, quantity over quality stage where we're really trying to have that freedom in the brainstorming. From there, we have develop. So critiquing and prototyping are going to be a huge chunk of this, like I said before, with that trial and error, because the ideas from this stage are going to be formed into testable solutions. We have to figure out a way to take all those really big, overarching, great ideas that we came up with and make them into something concrete. So really trying to get to that implementation stage, or the stage that we are going to have to kind of come to terms and communicate this value of the solution that we've created. And in this, oftentimes, there's going to be a part of overcoming pre-existing biases. So again, back to that, this is the way we've always done it, isn't going to be a good enough answer at this stage. They're going to have to be able to prove why that needs to happen that way if you found a better way to do it. Design-based thinking, like I said, is something that's growing a lot in popularity. And so when you're in that job search process, if there's a way that you want to be able to communicate your design-based thinking, or if you think that you've already got it and you want some way to quantify, like we're always talking about with resumes, this kind of intangible skill, IBM actually offers a free enterprise design thinking course. You can take it asynchronously. It really does not take a whole lot of time. I took it, while I was also taking graduate courses. And so with that, you can just follow this link here, or I'll also send the slides out at the end that will have a link for you to be able to use. So if you want to wait until then, you can do that as well. But it is a course dedicated to giving you a benchmark on enterprise design thinking. And so you go through a couple different courses with it, kind of go over some basics, how to do what, some different theories. It does not take a whole lot of time. And you end up with this little badge at the end of it. This is actually my personal badge that I earned from completing the course. And you can share it on LinkedIn. You can share it, the actual certification name on your resume. You can talk about it in the interview process. You can throw it into different conversations or talk about it with your advisors and stuff. There's a lot of different ways that you can utilize this, but it's a way to kind of quantify a skill set that normally isn't super identifiable in a concrete way. And with a name like IBM, they're generally pretty well respected. So this is going to hold some decent weight in that process. All right, so next we're going to do a brief little activity. This one does not utilize that much technology, so it will be pretty quick. But the idea here is we are going to try and use some of those techniques that we talked about before. So you can open a Word document, you can get a pen and paper, whatever you need to do. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to try and utilize those brainstorming techniques to solve a problem. So our problem is that we've just been notified that we own a $1 million lottery ticket. They just announced the numbers, you read them, you were like, oh my gosh, I've got it. But now you only have 4 hours to get to Roanoke to claim your ticket. No big problem, right? Roanoke's only like 45 minutes away, depending on 81. Unfortunately, though, your car is in the shop until tomorrow. You had to get new brakes. So you have no car, but you have to get to Roanoke within the next 4 hours. So use the next 5 minutes to come up with as many different ways as possible. 50 is just kind of an arbitrary number on how you can get to Roanoke to claim your winnings. So I'm going to go ahead and start the timer now. Each one of these blocks is a minute. So once the minute runs out, you'll see a let's share pop up, and that's when we'll be done. So go ahead and start now. You know, doing little games like that, talking about how to solve fake or fictional problems is a really great way to kind of just let your creativity shine. But that's not always the most efficient way to do that, right? So what are some other ways that you can increase your creativity? You can put them in the chat. You don't have to talk out loud if you want. What are some different activities that you can do to increase your creativity? Talk to kids. Yeah, they always have some really interesting ideas. Paint. Yeah, anything artsy is a really great way. You know, a lot of times when we're in the workplace, there's a, you know, kind of phrase of, you know, learn from the past to inform the future, right? But sometimes that's not always the best way to be super creative. We don't oftentimes in those creative spaces want to make assumptions on previous work. We want to think about what we can do for the future, not how we've done it, but how can we do it? From there, if you'll notice, the big theme today is big picture thinking, not getting lost in the details, coming up with new ideas, brainstorming, collaborating, yes, thinking about those big what ifs of like, if I could have this the most perfect way that I wanted it, what would that look like? What would I be doing? And so those are really great ways to kind of get started. Again, like we just talked about collaboration, get those different perspectives to help you out. I am not a very creative person. Luckily, the team that I work on are very creative people. So I can go to them and talk about, you know, hey, I'm facing this issue. What are some different ways that I could go about it? I've thought about doing this. And they're like, well, you could talk about A, or you could talk about B, or you could do C, or you could do D, or you could do F. You could go through all the different solutions with them. And even if those ones aren't going to work immediately, it gives you somewhere to start and go from. So you can read and seek out new experiences. So really trying to read different types of literature or different ideas, seek out new experiences, see new places, try new things, maybe put yourself in the shoes of someone that you're going to be working with. If you're coming up with an issue with the manufacturing team because the people on the floor can't do what you're hoping that they can, maybe you go down on the floor with the manufacturing team and try and figure out what they do and how they do it. What resources do they have? Maybe they can't do 50 pieces in an hour. Maybe you need to kind of scale back expectations. Again, like we talked about before, concreting yourself in that design-based thinking and really figuring out where are we before we need to think about where we need to go. Yep, omega-3, I've always heard that that's a great way to kind of keep the brain sharp. And then the last one's going to be using technology. Technology is so intertwined with everything we do now. It's going to be a part of just about everything. So we need to be able to embrace that process. thinking about how can we use different tools to enhance what we're already doing or replace what we're already doing, and in a way that is going to be productive, because change for change's sake is not a great way to live, but change for progress sake is. So really thinking about, what is that bold, crazy idea, and how can you take that and push it forward to the next stages to not only make your life better, but life after you better too. So in talking about technology, there are a couple different ways to use technology that are more helpful than others, right? So we talked about mind mapping before, word mapping, and Canva, which is a somewhat free, depending on which version you get, tool on the internet, has a mind map maker. You can go in there and it helps you build it and do everything that you need it to do and create one big illustration that you can kind of go through. Kind of similar to, if anyone remembers Prezi, I might be dating myself there a little bit, but Prezi also is a great way to kind of build those word maps, as you can kind of take it on a roller coaster ride through there. But if you want to build one of these in person, poster board or a whiteboard is a great place to start, where you can really start trying to build out different branches and really, have the ability to race and start over and kind of go through all that. It's a great way to do it. Yeah, Prezi is not something that I've heard in a long time either, but it is a great tool in this instance because it gives you a lot of creative ability. Generative AI. I know at this point we're probably sick and tired of hearing about, like, we need to be using AI, because we all get it. AI is something that we need to embrace kind of going forward, because there is a really, really great benefit to using this. Fun fact, our outline for today's session was built with generative AI. I used ChatGPT to help me build the lesson plan for today. And it's because it is the new perspective. It is the way to kind of get some advice and building blocks for what you're putting together. Now, it is not going to give you the final product, but it will give you some input on how to get there, or a new way to try. It is not the end-all answer, but it is a great place to start. Slido, again, usually works really well. It did not earlier today, but they do have a new section of it called Ideas, where you can do a lot of brainstorming. You share the link with different individuals, and they are able to pull it all together and kind of create some different maps and stuff for you. There is also a word cloud feature where you share the QR code with everyone who is there. They start typing in the words and it automatically builds the word cloud for you. So it's a great way to use that. Jamboard is also another way to virtually brainstorm. It allows people to build some sticky notes and really put their ideas kind of all over the place. You can start to organize them, you can map them out, you can do a lot of different things with it. And as Virginia Tech students, it's free through your Google subscription. So definitely something worth using. I know the university uses it a lot in our meetings, and it's a great way to kind of do that. So that is pretty much everything. What I want to do next is really talk about what is one main thing that you took away from today. What is something that you're leaving with that you didn't have before?